Hello everyone, welcome to episode 14 of the Shed End View podcast. My name is Gareth McCullough,
And I'm Ollie McKenzie.
and that young whippersnapper down there is no other than Ray Byrne. Welcome, Ray.
Hey, Ray.
So we'll get a yarn about Newry later, but we want to start with your sort of career. I think Ali's got a sort of an opening question for you.
Yeah, Ray. Obviously, you were brought up in around the town then. Did you were you a fan of the club before you eventually ended up playing for them, or what was your kind of first memories of the showgrounds and of Newry Town then?
Yeah, my first memories, probably in my teenage years, around 85, 86, probably around 14, 15 years of age at the time, going to watch the local team, big crowds down, and definitely remember going to watch Newry play in the semi-final of the Irish Cup. I think it was 85, 86. Matt Bradley was the manager. Local players like Tommy Gray, Ollie Ralph, Paddy Lundy, so many good players that that this is before the days of Sky TV and all that you look forward to seeing. They were your idols that you thought it was just a fantastic league that you wanted to be part of.
And I mean, from a footballing perspective, to what age were you when you broke into the first team, and how your debut come about, and who was it against?
Well, I remember Artie Green was the youth manager down in Newry. I think there was probably 89, 90, so it would have been 16, 17, 18, 16, 17, and we were playing on the youth team, and a very good team back then. Darren was playing. We had Marty O'Hanlon, Colin McGurk. I think Jackie McParlin might have been involved as well at the time. So a lot of young lads all playing. And,
hold on a second. Pause you there. You contradicted yourself, but you said we had a very good team, and then you said Jackie McParlin was part of it. So can you clarify that?
Well, I don't think he played an awful lot. He may have been just helping out, the water carrier or something like that. But he was definitely part of the setup, and we had a great, like the Newry under 18, so it was the Irish League under 18s. So I think we ended up finishing about third or fourth that year. So had a good bunch of players, and it was great team spirit as well. We're at that age, 16, 17, everybody was starting to go out. We were all part of the same squad, and there were great times. But come the end of that season, I think about 3, 4 games towards the end of the season, I got called into the first team, and ended up going to Windsor Park. Didn't get on the bench or anything like that, but just got a feel of the place, just got a feel of being on the bench and the dugouts and all, and was involved for the last 3 or 4 games of that season. I think I got sub once, but never got on. Come pre-season then, went back down pre-season, and just lucky enough got involved with the first team straight away, got straight into their training, and got involved in all the pre-season games. And remember we played West Brom during that pre-season, where we beat 3-1, big crowds at the showgrounds and all. So come the first game of the season, I ended up not starting. So 4 games in, still didn't start, and the 5th game started, and the rest is a bit of history, I suppose. I get in and stayed in.
And I mean, how? So you moved. That was 19. That was the 1990-91 season. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
And you moved to Forest in 1991. So I mean, how that rise, sort of, to go from breaking into the first team and then being signed to play under Brian Clough. How does that happen? I mean, that's the epitome of a whirlwind sort of period of time, really, for you, isn't it?
Well, it seems to be, looking back at it, when you were living in it, it just seemed to be normal enough. Like when I did first get into the first team, I think we played about 23, 24 games in a row, and it came to the February of 91 then, and just got a phone call on the Sunday morning from Matt Bradley saying that we're going on trial next week over to Forest. So ended up going over on the Sunday night. Went into training on the Monday morning, and like these are the days this is 1991. I'd never been in an airplane before. Never been out of the country, no passport, no nothing. So it seems like such a long time ago. But you've been driven in the first team car park at the city ground, and the first person you see is Steve Hodge, and you see these players. Like I remember these players from the '86 World Cup and the 1990 World Cup, and you're looking at Steve Hodge, who played against Maradona in the '86 quarter final. A wee fun fact: he actually has his jersey from the '86 quarter final. Yeah, so you're seeing Steve Hodge, and you're going, "Wow, this is unbelievable here." So ended up training that morning, and you're told straight away, "Oh, the reserves are going to Villa Park tonight. You're going to be involved with them tonight." So ended up going down to Villa Park and started centre half that night, and we won the game 1-0. And then 3 days later, you're playing against Darlington away, and on the Thursday morning, you're signing a 3.5-year contract.
That's nuts.
Thursday afternoon, you're flying back to Newry, and Thursday afternoon, you're flying back to Newry, and you're home for a week to sort out. Like, I was still at college, I was in the tech, so you're sorting out your bits and pieces, and the following Sunday, you were flying back to Nottingham for a 3.5-year stint.
Well, Ray,
quickly it all happened.
Just to make you feel a good bit older, this was early 1991. So I was only
when were you born, Ally?
I was only born in the May 1991. But I was going to say, Ray, like, what were you then? 17, 18 then? Or
I was 18 when I
you were 18. So what was it like? People obviously move abroad for university and that, but what was it like moving abroad to be a professional footballer? And considering you probably hadn't left Newry, you said at that time you hadn't been on an airplane, and then all of a sudden you're moving country, you're signed for a new team, and you've got like Brian Clough, who's won 2 European Cups, is signing you. What was it? That must have been just like mind blowing at the time.
Yeah, it was definitely, and for like especially all the young ones, mightn't be able to see back as far as 1991, but Forest really had the England back four at that stage, and the amount, you had internationals right the way throughout the team, from English, Irish, and then you had the character of Brian Clough there too, and the history of the club. So it was really and still is. I was over there recently. Forest, still a big club, big aspirations, and
it's a sleeping giant, really, isn't it, at the minute?
It's just like Leeds. You can just see. Like this year, there was a buzz about the place, the feeling that they were able to do something, and it's all been cut short a little bit, but it's a fantastic club, and we had such great players: Stuart Pearce, Des Walker, Brian Laws, Gary Charles. That was virtually the England back four at that stage, So it was a fantastic time.
I mean, in terms of, I suppose, what people will be interested to know, so we'll obviously have to ask you. Roy Keane, obviously a player who you trained with and played with and know pretty well and got to know pretty well back in the day. I mean, give us the sort of your first impressions of him, I suppose, and what relationship you had with him, I suppose.
Well, when I went over for the trial, I met him for about 5 minutes, and he just said hello, and there's just a wee bit of small conversation, But when I came home and I came back over again, I was told I was going into the clubhouse. It was a small terraced house just beside the training ground, and Roy was already in it, plus another lad, Gary Bowyer, Father Ian Bowyer, European Cup winner. So there was. So I was told I was going straight into that house. So I was the third person to get into the small 3-bedroom terraced house. So he picked me up at the airport on the Sunday night, and you're waking up on the Monday morning and you're ready to go. Like at that stage, Roy was already a superstar in the making. He was already in the first team. He was the hottest young prospect that there was about the place, and there was a buzz about him, you know, everywhere you went, you know. So he was really good lad, really good lad.
I mean, from a football perspective, I mean, obviously you were there for a few years at Forest, and it didn't. So I suppose it didn't. No, I don't want to say it didn't work out, because that's probably being harsh. But in terms of, you know, you ended up sort of going somewhere else and then coming back home. I mean, do you look back at it? Were there any things that you would have done differently, or you hope might have happened differently, that you could have been even more successful than you were out of it?
I'm always a great believer that things happen for a reason, and probably went over for 3.5 years. It took me about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and it was around that time that I probably felt that I was at my most comfortable, that I thought I was making progress, and then I got a couple of injuries, whatever. But like, I'm not saying it's an excuse or anything like that, but at the end of the day, things work out for a reason. You know, I think my level, when you look back at your whole career, was definitely at a semi-professional level. You know, to get to that next level, I just hadn't enough about me. But it's not a negative. It's a positive. You know, you have to look at it as a great experience, and wouldn't change it for the world. And you know, you learn so much from it. And even coming back here and for the last, you know, 25, 30 years of being involved in Irish League football, you know, the amount of experience and the tips that you've learned by just watching and seeing how clubs and players conduct themselves. You know, it was a great education for yourself, you know, for myself.
Well, obviously, Ray, football was different in the 90s, like early 90s, particularly before the Premier League, compared to what it is now. But for you, moving from Irish League to that kind of standard of Nottingham Forest, with the history that it had, like, what pressure did you feel maybe going in through that door? Or was there any when you're so young? Do you think about that? Or was it just another kind of something else that's happening?
No, I don't think you feel that that's a different type of pressure. Because when you go over there, as soon as you went over there, the first thing you seen was, you know, when, like, Forest were a big enough club at the time, and I'm sure it has multiplied so much today. But you're going over there, and straight away there was 70 players involved in every training session. So split into 3 or 4 different groups, you know, from the first team to the reserve, the youth teams, whatever like that. So what you noticed straight away was, you know, like I was going over there as an 18-year-old, but those 6 or 7 17 to 21-year-olds all working for the same positions, you know, all had the same aspirations, all had different things to bring to the table, you know. So it was very competitive straight away. You might have been coming from Uri, where you know, you broke into the first team here, and you know, you were doing quite well. And then you go over there, and all of a sudden there's 6 or 7 that's not even at the first team level yet, but they're all aiming and gearing for the same position. And you can see now, you know, when you hear the likes of Chelsea could have 70, 80 players out of loan, that tells you how many players there are at each club throughout the land.
Just on that, sorry, Ray, like, you know, so many people in the same position. Are you, or were you one of those people who'd be like, okay, I'm going to be better than every single one of these? Or did you find that difficult in any way, you know, facing that competition?
I would say I found it difficult initially to start with, and then you start to get a feel for it. As I say, it could have took me maybe a year and a half, 2 years to find your feet over there. You know, it's some people can get into it very quickly. Other people, it takes a wee bit longer. Other people, it just doesn't happen for them at all. You know, I've seen people getting signed for big money, and all of a sudden they just go nowhere. You know, and you've even seen it in Irish League or ourselves. You know, you can have a player that signs, and he surprises you, and then you have a player you've spent big money on, and he disappoints you. You know, so the competition is very high over there. And like, even there recently, I went over to watch Forest, went to watch Notts County and Dover in the Conference League, and then I went to watch Bradford and Grimsby Town, and there's just so many more players. It's so much more competitive over there. But it is what it is. It's works out for you. And there's lots of local lads as well that that have done better than me and have stayed over there. So if you are successful, it's a fantastic way of life.
I mean, looking at then, I suppose we're nearly doing this in chronological order. So, sort of, when you come back, you obviously had a couple other spells with Newry and finished your career with Newry. But in between times, obviously, your most successful period as a player with Portadown. Portadown, as much as it pains me to say it, are still a massive club. But, back in those days, particularly in the 90s, they were huge, and there was a lot of big names, a lot of big players. Ronnie McFall obviously was there, hugely successful. Around that sort of time, probably around that decade, you had the likes of yourself, Robbie Casey, Marty McGee, Mickey Keenan, Joey Cunningham, just to name a few. I mean, I appreciate that Portadown is probably the closest club to Newry. It's probably the closest club in terms of geography in Northern Ireland. But why were there so many great players to come out of Newry that end up playing for Portadown and being hugely successful at Portadown and probably not having that same amount of success at their hometown club? Is there one particular reason or anything you would pinpoint that as?
Well, just personally for myself now, I remember it was different when I left in 91, but when I left again in 95, July or August of 95, Newry were financially in trouble. It's not a new story. It's the history of Newry. We're financially in trouble, and Portadown had made an offer for me. So I was quite happy playing at Newry, and I was doing quite well. So Portadown made an offer, and the club had accepted it. And I was, you weren't being told, but Newry needed the money.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, also, I really wanted to move too. Because Portadown had a great history. 1991, they were coming close in 93-94 season as well. And the great basis of the likes of Brian Strain, Alfie Stewart, Craig Davidson, Joey Cunningham, Mickey Keenan was still there. A lot of strong Irish League players. And then on top of that, during that summer, they signed Gary Hillock, Peter Kennedy, who went on to play in the Premiership. Robbie was already there, so they had a really strong squad, and the opportunity was there for me to go, and it suited Newry, I think, for me to go, and it probably suited me for me to go as well. So at that stage, as you say, there was Robbie, there was Mickey, there was Joey, Marty McGee, really strong players coming out of Newry, and it just goes to show you the history of football in Newry, that these boys were sought after throughout the Irish League, and and some of them, the likes of Joey and the likes of Mickey, are absolute superstars of Irish League football, so it was a move that I was glad to make, but it worked out for everybody really in hindsight.
I mean, looking at, obviously, we'll skip a few years, I suppose. We're obviously doing this podcast. It's on Newry City AFC. There's obviously the famous picture of the
that's enough about Portadown.
yeah. Well, forget about them.
If anybody's still listening,
let's consign them to the dustbin.
Yeah.
There's a famous picture, obviously, of the very first meeting with the supporters, whenever the Newry City AFC was in its infancy. Very much, it hadn't even been officially formed. I think it was yourself, Darren, Mickey, and Eric Wilson, I think. So you were one of the first ones there. Putting your hand up to chip in and to volunteer to help out. I mean, did you think, I suppose the obvious question, did you think at that time when you're sitting in the social club, if you can hark back to that period, that the club was going to go on and be as successful as it has been, and hopefully can continue to be in the future? Do you genuinely think we can be playing the Premiership in the period of time that we ended up playing in the Premiership?
Absolutely not. But no, but it all, like I'm sure you remember that time, and it definitely wasn't a good time for the club. And I remember the season or the club getting wound up at the time, and our first priority at the time was making sure the players, some of them able to move very quickly, some of them weren't able to move very quickly, some were still professional and weren't able to play football again until January the 1st. So it was a tough time in that respect, because like we've all been players and we understand that players need to play, and first and foremost that was the first priority, and it was heart wrenching for them that they weren't able to play for Newry. What Newry had promised them, they weren't able to fulfil, and so it was a tough time. So once that got over and done with, like nobody had ever been in the situation where they were involved with a club that got wound up, and what do, and all this here. So it near enough happened all pretty quick, and we all know the story about Darren, and but really he took the bull with the horns, and I think it happened very simply. It was just in the, like, I could have been working away one morning, and the next thing he's ringing me at lunchtime. He says, "I have a meeting set up here. We've got all the MLAs coming down, and things are happening here." And he had the drive, and he had the energy for it, and bit by bit, with a lot of hard work and Darren's leadership, that you could see people were starting to come around to the idea of, we're going to get up and going again here. And it sounds very simple in the background. Like to be fair, I just dealt with a lot of the footballing side of it myself. I know Darren, Mickey, especially Eric, Jock. A lot of the committee people, they were working so hard in behind the scenes, to get things drawn up, to get the club up and running again. There was outstanding bills in the club and all, but really, Darren, I think, setting up meetings and getting people energized around him, and yeah, there were strange times, but good times, because we all know that it was the start of something new and something fresh, and a year later we're out of football, but we're back in football again, and that was and I suppose in all our situations, the first thing, especially young lads, they need to be given a place to play football. Yeah. And especially in the city of Newry, Newry City Football Club is your highest level of football. So that was important, I think, even for me and Darren and Mickey and all, that young lads were given the same opportunity as we were. So it was important we got the club up and going again, and yeah, so the rest is history, I suppose.
Yeah, Ray, just on that, obviously you're with the club when it goes under, and everything that happens after that happened, but was there like a conscious decision that you made to stay with the club, as opposed to thinking, well, I could just go to another club here and probably coach comfortably and not have the worries and the stress of rebuilding, of trying to get a crowd back, trying to build a club? Was that ever a thought, or were you just like in it from the beginning, that was it? Or did Dan not give you a choice?
No, well, unlike my playing career, where sometimes I had a few clubs interested in my coaching career, it really didn't happen like that. The phone was there, but it didn't ring. So really, it was a no-brainer. So to be fair to Darren, he did ring.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I remember having plenty of conversations with you the season that we did the documentary, and just talking to you. And I know the commitment it took, but from your point of view, and the coaching and the kind of work that you do is never seen by the fans or anything like that. But what kind of commitment level and what kind of effort did it take to actually keep that club moving for 4 or 5 years that you were with them coaching? Personally, how much effort did that take from you?
Well, first and foremost, it was a joy. So it was to be back, and even from the Mid-Ulster B, Mid-Ulster A days and intermediate, it was a very enjoyable 3-4 years, and you know, most of our games were all in around mid Ulster area, and sometimes a couple games might have been a wee bit further afield. But we had a bunch of players. Uh, you know, sometimes the squads were pretty big, often, you know, maybe 20 of a squad, but we had a bunch of players that basically would have run through a brick wall for Darren, myself, Mickey, Jervis, Gary, you know. So it was very enjoyable from that respect, because once you have players and a committee and a club with volunteers all in around it that are all working hard, and everybody's got the same goal at the end of it, it makes life so easy for the likes of Darn, you know, Mickey, himself, you know, Jervis. So in that respect, it, 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 it was enjoyable. It was fun. You know, the crack was brilliant down there. I'm sure you know, it's a small group of people, but really enjoyable times, and you know, some great laughs, and with the players and all, and some great nights out with the players and all, because we had a bit of success, and we're well celebrated, and you know, people coming together and the community coming together, and also having big crowds coming back to the showgrounds was very important, because I remember when I first started off, I can remember playing in front of 2,500-3,000 people down at the showgrounds, and they were fantastic times, and you know, having big clubs coming to the showgrounds, the Linfield, the Glentorrans, you know, there was a lot of police around in them days as well at the games, you know, and it all added to it. But having the crowds back to showgrounds, and I think we played, was it Money Slam we played one night, and there was 800 in it, in Mid Ulster B, you know, fantastic, and so the people in Uri really came out and got behind us, and was pushing everybody on.
So, I mean, just to follow up on that, obviously, you know, such a good time, such a connection with the club. I suppose, in brief terms, I mean, what was it? How did the decision come about for you to sort of take a step away? Was it obviously it was for personal reasons as well? But what was your specific reason? Did you pick one reason why you decided to sort of knock it in the head? You know, last year, or it was 18 months ago. What was it?
Well, there was probably two main reasons. First one, well, I worked for myself, so I was getting up. I was finding myself being out early in the morning and getting back to the house, maybe lunch for an hour or whatever, then working again and finishing at 6, and then getting down to the club straight away, getting set up for training and all. And just some of the days were becoming too long, and I think I'd done 8 years in total, you know, if you include the year that Pat was the manager, and then the year that we had out, and then I think it was 5 or 6 years with Darren. So, and I found myself just getting a wee bit mentally tired, basically, and on top of that, you know, you're not. I felt myself personally, I wasn't putting enough into, you know, the coaching plans, and you know, and that wasn't for the likes of Darren, wasn't for the players. So something had to give a little bit. Plus, also on top of that, I hadn't followed up on my coaching badges, and you know, so they were the two main reasons. So so
yes,
I think I made the right decision. Yeah.
You're just saying you couldn't be arsed anymore, is what you're saying.
well, you know, it's definitely much easier sitting up in the stand, so it is.
Do people still shout abuse at you when you're in the stands, Ray?
No. Sometimes I hide up in the top corner, and they don't even know that I'm there.
Look, we've only got a few minutes left, so what we'll do is we do a thing with the players that we have on, or the coaches, whoever it is, our top 5. I'm sure you've seen it, your 5-year teammates. Now, given obviously the current players are guys, the vast majority of the guys you've coached, we've obviously also played with Portadown, you've played with your teams of older days, played at Nottingham Forest obviously as well. So will that you include anybody that you've played with or coached for your answers here. So it doesn't have to be specifically in Uri, because you've certainly been involved with some big name players, as you've already mentioned. So, Ali, if you want to fire away with the first of the top five, and first person who's into your head, Ray, and a brief explanation.
Okay, so Ray, who was the most skillful player that you ever played with?
Paul Evans.
Why Paul Evans?
With Portadown, very, very silky in the ball, very energised on the ball, So, yeah, I'll go with Paul Evans.
Fair enough, and that's quite a coup for Paul Evans, given the player. Fair enough. Okay, who out of all the players played with, coached, who's the brainiest player you've come across?
I haven't seen this part of your.
Oh, have you not? Even better.
No.
Even better. This is good. You obviously have been watching the end, which is quite disappointing, but we'll leave that.
The most intelligent player.
Should narrow it down pretty quickly, I would have thought.
I always thought Ollie Rolfe was a very intelligent player. I know it's easy to look at him and just see his goals, but he was always a very shrewd player with centre halves. First of all, making sure he didn't get kicked, because a lot of people, especially in the 80s and 90s, people were out to kick him. So he was very shrewd at taking up positions and riding the challenge and understanding how football can be played. Because believe it or not, if Ollie had stood his ground, he wouldn't have lasted nowhere near as long as he did. So he had to be very intelligent on the pitch.
Yeah. Ray, Mr. Motivator, now this is like somebody who's great at pep talks. It could be, even if it's a manager, because you've played under some great managers in your time, or a player that you've coached or whatever it might be, but who would be the best at the pep talks?
Best at pep talks? Always like Ronnie's team talks. Ronnie's team talks were always very simple, so they were, and it was. He used to go through like the back four, just everybody keeping shape, and the midfield keeping shape, and breaking lines, and so probably I spent most of the years under Ronnie. They were very simple. They weren't overly too tactical, which a lot of managers are. You'd be surprised. Especially in the 90s and early 2000s when I was playing. Coaching can be slightly overrated. It's about having a lot of good players, and players can work it out themselves. Always liked Alfie Stewart. Alfie Stewart, when he was playing at Portadown, was very professional, understood. Was a really good Irish League player, really strong mentally and physically. So yeah, we'll go with him too.
Okay, so the penultimate one. Who had, over your career, who's had the best excuse for missing training? I suspect this is probably going to be more an Irish League one than a time when you're playing professionally, but best excuse for missing training could be somebody you've coached in your area as well, obviously. I have a feeling it might be.
Well, probably in my Portadown days, it could have been Philip Major. And Philip was a fantastic player. I think he's won nearly all the league titles with Portadown. I think he's got 4 league titles. But and I think he had a long career, but he never ever did a pre-season. And he always turned up about a week before pre-season, and you're going, how are you meant to play, Philip? And all of a sudden he would just slot in, whether it was a right back or centre back, and he could and the amount of training sessions that he would have missed. So probably Philip Major in the Portadown days. In the Newry days, there's been a few in the last few years. Mark Lordy was very good at missing training. For any amount of excuses, Paddy Mooney was absolutely a world beater at missing training, and
matches as well.
And matches. Jimmy Jimmy Walker could have missed quite a few training sessions, but always seemed to turn up at 7:20 with work boots on. So probably go with them.
Brilliant. And the final one then was, who was Mr. Pass the Buck? So who's the best at passing the buck during matches or training or whatever?
Pass the buck. Probably in the Portadown days, it could have been Timmy Dalton. Always used to come out, goalkeeper, and any time of goal went in, you could see the TV cameras on, and Timmy Dalton would have come always running out with his hands up in the air, like so it was his fault. So there's some players quite intelligent of working out. If you do a certain thing, it deflects the blame a wee bit. So I'll go with Timmy Dalton.
And here, final question was, who would win a stirring contest, you or Roy Keane?
That's a hard one. I think.
No, it's not.
I think we'll go with Roy then.
Ray, well, listen, thanks very much. You've been a super guest.
Thanks so much.
Really appreciate you coming on. Look after yourself and the family, and we'll see you again very soon. Hopefully down at the showgrounds with a match on. Thanks very much, Ray.
Yes, Ray. Thanks so much. Good to see you.
Yeah. Thanks, lads. Keep safe.
Take care.
Bye bye.